Hello again, everyone. In this video, I'm going to show you how Python does object-oriented programming. In this particular video, I'm going to show how you create a class in Python and then make objects of that class. The PowerPoints you should look at for this subject are the Chapter 10 PowerPoints for the Gaddis group and the Chapter 2 PowerPoints for the Goodrich group. The first thing you do when creating a class in Python is you must use the keyword class and you must give the class a name. In this case, the name of this class is pet. And then you have a colon after the name of the class. The first function you see defined in a Python class is this one called the initializer method. Now, this is the same as a constructor in object-oriented programming. This method, which is always called by this name in Python, is used to do two things. One, it allocates the correct amount of memory for an object or instance of the class. Two, it gives the variables of the class their initial values. Now, as you can see, this particular initializer or constructor has three parameters. And within this initializer, we're going to define the three variables. One is called name, the second is animal type, and the third is age. Now you'll notice this keyword self keeps appearing everywhere in the class. In the definition of a class, the keyword self will always be a parameter of any method in the class. It must also be part of the name of any variable defined in the class. So we don't just use the variable name in the definition, we use self.name. Furthermore, these two underscores in front of the variable names indicate that this is a private data item. Private means that anything with the two underscores can be accessed directly within the class definition, but cannot be accessed directly outside of the class definition. Typically, you will make your class member variables private and your class methods public. As it says here in the comments, two underscores means private data item. One underscore means protected. That means if you create a class and that class is inherited by another class, then the inherited items can be accessed by the class that did the inheriting. We'll talk about inheritance in another video. And if there are no underscores at all, that means the data item is public. So again, this keyword self will appear as a parameter in every class method and must begin every name of every class variable in Python. Now, typically what also happens in object-oriented programming is you define a set method for each variable. A set method is also known as a mutator because it changes the value. We have one parameter for the name, so we set the name variable equal to that parameter. We have the same thing for the animal type and the same thing for the age. It's also common to define get methods, which are also known as accessors. These simply return the value of a class variable. As you can see, the self variable is always a parameter in any class method. However, there are no other parameters defined here because you're just returning a value for the get methods. Now, not every class will require you to define set and get methods. This is just the basic way of learning how to do object-oriented programming. But typically, this is how you begin. Now, I'm going to scroll down the code. And here I've created a main program. Now, even though this main program is in the same file as the class, since I've defined a main function, Starting here at the main function, this is no longer in the definition of the class. So that means I cannot access my 3 class variables directly within the main program. But I can call the functions. Let me demonstrate. These first 3 lines are defining 3 different objects of the pet class. My first object is called Snoopy. As you can see, the name is set to Snoopy, the type is dog, and we'll set the age at 10. Second object is named Garfield. That object's name is obviously Garfield, the type is a cat, and its age is 8. Finally, we have an object named Tweety, whose name is Tweety, its type is a bird, and its age is 6. So each of these 3 lines are how you create an object or instance of a class. And what happens is when you do something like this in a main function, the init method is called. So even though you don't see the word init anywhere in these 3 lines, that is the method that is being called since we are referencing the name of the class, which is pet. Whenever you create an object or instance of any class in Python, that class's init method will be called. Finally, these last 3 lines are where I am calling the other class functions, at least the get functions. So here I am doing 3 prints. Let's look at the first one. For Snoopy, I call the getName function. I call the getAnimalType function, and then call the getAge function and display all that data that's retrieved in a sentence. Notice I'm doing the same thing on the next line for Garfield. Last line, I'm doing the same for Tweety. Run this program and see how it works. And as you can see right here, there's my output. Again, here's where I'm printing Snoopy's information. There's the output for Snoopy. This line is where I'm printing Garfield's information. There's the output for Garfield. And finally, here's where I'm printing information for Tweety. And there's Tweety's output. And this is your introduction to object-oriented programming in Python. If you have any questions, please send me an email at kmuldrow@lbcc.edu.